We continue our series this morning on child exploitation. Today we're introducing you to the men and women who have dedicated their lives to stopping predators from harming our children and rescuing kids who have become victims. Brandy is here this morning, and this type of work can really take an emotional toll. I can't even imagine, even on investigators who've been doing this a very long time.
Yeah, and sometimes especially those investigators who have been doing it for years and years. And I think sometimes we forget with these types of crimes that can be so devastating to so many people. I mean, when you consider the toll it takes on the victims' families, on really everyone involved, sometimes we forget about the toll that it can take on investigators as well. And sometimes the most difficult part of their job is just knowing when it's time to stop.
I mean, I'd love it if I didn't have to do this job, but the sad fact is I do.
Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez has seen things, heard things that for most of us would be unbearable. He deals with monsters every single day, and sometimes he has to pretend that he's one of them.
Anybody who does this, it takes a toll.
Please get on the ground right now. Get on the ground.
Sergeant Rodriguez is with the State Patrol's Missing and Exploited Children Task Force. He has helped lead a series of undercover stings called Operation Net Nanny,
Put your other hand on your back.
where he often poses as either a seller or buyer of child sex.
Pull this out here.
In total, they've arrested and charged more than 60 suspects, and even better, have rescued 18 children and potentially prevented countless others from becoming victims.
Okay, sir, have a seat.
Where you're actually apprehending somebody who wants to do harm to a child, or you're actually rescuing a child, or you find a lead towards that and you get a rescue. That's the best feeling.
The conversations he has with child predators online are far too graphic for TV. And like others who do this job, he has been deeply impacted as a father.
Now that I do it, I don't see how I can do anything else.
I am asking the court to impose a 38-month prison sentence.
King County Senior Deputy Prosecutor Cecilia Gregson and Seattle Police Captain Mike Edwards are with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. They, too, are parents.
Since most things are videos now, I can't have the sound on. It's one thing to see it, it is another thing to hear it, and I can't get it out of my head.
You never forget the first image. In fact, you don't forget any of them. When you're out there having seen these images and these videos, now we rescue that very child that was in those. That's when the mountain falls on you.
Seattle Police Detective Ian Polimis had to stop investigating child exploitation cases after 8 years.
You know, the way I explain it now, especially when I talk to fellow investigators, I tell them I did 8 years, which was really 1 year too long.
So you knew it was time?
It was time. It was absolutely time. The last year I was doing this job was really, really, really difficult for me. All right, come on.
He now works as the full-time handler for Bear, a dog trained to sniff out electronic storage devices that suspects might be using to hide child pornography.
Cell phones, iPods, iPads.
Bear also helps detectives cope with the mental stress of their job.
It's an opportunity for them to take a break for a few minutes if they're having to review content or deal with these cases and, you know, get their mind in not so pleasant places.
I don't think I could do this forever. Maybe take a break for a while and then go back and do it.
What would your message be to people who are out there looking for this?
I don't know if I can say it on
You
TV.
can say whatever you want on TV.
No,
That's what bleeps are for.
Yeah. No, I can't. If somebody plans on showing up to do something like this, I mean, I hope that it's someone like me or law enforcement that they meet rather than a child.
The driving force for all of us is, there's a kid out there. There's a child out there that needs to be found, needs to be rescued, and there is a suspect that's got to go to jail.
And I know I speak for a lot of people when I say I'm so grateful that there are investigators out there willing to do this type of work and willing to take on that emotional toll. As they mentioned in that story, you know, all of them are parents. And coming up tomorrow morning at the same time, we're going to talk about some of the advice they have for other parents from their experience and how they've changed the way that they raise their kids or deal with their kids, especially when it comes to online stuff and the apps on their phones.
We talked about this yesterday, Brandy, about how it's easy to watch these kinds of stories at first before doing it locally like you have and think this is something that's happening elsewhere. How realistic is it for everyday families to be legitimately concerned about the possibility of this happening to their family?
Well, I think any parent who has a kid with a cell phone should be worried, legitimately. And that's just about, I think, every parent out there, if your kid is of age, to have a cell phone. I mean, it depends on what kind of cases we're talking about. If we're talking about actual in-person physical abuse of a child, you have to have some sort of adult in your life that is willing to exploit you in that way. But when we talk about exploitation that's happening online, and one of the trends, and I hate to call it a trend, but that's sort of what investigators say that should be of most concern to parents. It has to do with the apps on their phones. You know, you might have those apps where something disappears right after you send it. You get a predator pretending to be someone else, getting one of those images from a child, and then using that image to exploit them for more graphic images and videos. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, what everyday families should be taking away from investigators like these.
It's terrifying. I'm so glad you're shedding light on this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandy.